Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 2 of Beach Week. If you didn't get a chance to see day 1, I will link it at the end of this video for you. I'll be using some of the components from the Hero Arts June 2018 kit. Now the kit is no longer available, but the individual stamp sets are, as well as the sand embossing powder that I used in day 1's video and today. So here are the two cards that we're going to be making today, an easier one and a stepped up pop-up box version. So let's begin with the simpler version. For my first card, I'm going to do a slimline card design. So I'm going to trace the openings of the die so that I know exactly where I need to stamp my beach scene. I'm using the Hero Arts Color Layering Waves stamp. Now this is a 3-part stamping process, so there's 3 layers to it. This happens to be an extremely forgiving stamp. So not all coloring layering stamps are as forgiving as this one. So even though you see that it's blotchy and uneven, it will even out and it will look just fine in the end. So the nice thing about this stamp set is that you really just need to align the top edge, which is a straight line, which makes this, much easier to align. So I'm on to the second layer now, and now I'm getting ready to stamp the final one. So I'm using 3 different colors of Altenew inks. And since this is a very dark blue layer, I do want to be a little bit more purposeful in how I stamp this one. So that is it. The stamping for this is done, and now I'm going to put my die on it, and as you can see, you can't even tell that it was uneven. So I'm going to erase those pencil lines that I made as a guide, and I'm going to create the sand by using some Distress Oxide and tea dye to blend in that sand underneath the waves. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, and I'm going to be camouflaging any imperfection by adding some specks of sand using the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay White India ink, as well as the Distress Oxides in tea dye and vintage photo. So I'm wetting it with a bit of water and then just sprinkling it on, tapping it with my paintbrush. So now that is done, and I can go ahead and die cut it exactly where I want it and secure it with a piece of purple tape. So I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine, and I'm going to pop those pieces out. So now there's a little bit of unevenness at the top, so I'm just going to grab the same ink color that I used and just fill in any gaps at the top, and now they're all matched perfectly. Okay, so I wanted to add a sand layer underneath that top layer. So I'm going to go ahead and get my embossing dauber once again, and I'm going to be inking up the sides of this piece of cardstock so that I could put some sand embossing powder around it. Now, if you don't have an embossing dauber, you can use the side of your Versamark ink pad. It'll work just the same way. So I'm going to be sprinkling on the Hero Arts sand embossing powder, which I've mentioned already that I absolutely love because it does look like sand. It's so much fun. Now with this particular embossing powder, you do have to heat it from the back first. Otherwise, the bits will go everywhere. So I will do that off camera and heat emboss it from behind. I'll put the extra back in the jar. And so now that I'm done embossing it from the back, I can finish up embossing it from the front. And you can see it looks super cool. So now I'm going to go ahead and fold up my base card. I'm going to add some tape adhesive to secure it to that base card. So I'm going to put it all around the edges of that panel. I'll remove the liner and then attach it to the card base. Now I'm going to go ahead and I want to pop it up just a little bit, so I'm going to use a low profile foam tape, and I'm going to put it all across the bottom or the back of this panel And then I'm going to pop in all those little pieces like a puzzle. And they do fit perfectly just like that. Next, I'm going to remove all the liner from the back. And then I'm going to place it on top of that sand panel that I created. And that's pretty much done. So now I'm going to snap a couple of little sea stars, die cut them. Now I forgot to do this before, so you should probably do this before, but it worked out okay. So I inked up some little footprints, put some sand embossing powder. Now I'm working on the greeting on the front, and it's one piece, but I masked off part of it so I could mask the one part on one side or one panel and then the other one on the other panel, and it reads greetings from my happy place. So now I'm going to go ahead and adhere the little sea stars to the first panel. I'm going to take my Copic E08 marker and just do some dot detail to the sea stars, and then I'm going to put some Nouveau Crystal Glaze to gloss it up, and then take the Spectrum Noir Crystal Sparkle Pen and just spread it all in random places so that it sparkles. And that's it. First card is done. Let's step it up with a pop-up box card. So I went ahead and stamped the 3 panels that I'm going to need, much in the same way that I did before, using the same exact colors. So again, even though it looks blotchy and horrible, it will be just fine in the end. So did the first panel in the lightest color. Now I'm going in with a mid-tone shade for the second panel. I'm going to flip my cardstock and do the same thing. I ended up doing 3 panels for total for this card. Now I'm on to the third one with the darkest colored ink. And that part of it is done. Okay, so I went ahead and die cut all the parts for the pop-up box card. I did use Fawn's pop-up box card dies. I went ahead and sprinkled, just like I did before for the sand. I added some adhesive along the sides of the box and adhered the 2 panels together to create the kind of the base or foundation of the box. I folded down the tabs that are going to be folded down, and then I went ahead and creased all the score marks and added adhesive to those tabs. Before that, I went ahead and I inked the edges, just something I like to do just to give everything a finished look. So added adhesive to those tabs, and then I removed one side of the adhesive to go ahead and get those panels adhered to the box card. Now I'm not going to go into the details of assembling this. I will link the Fawn video so that you can watch it. They do it you know, very well, explain it very well, very slowly and step by step. So I have adhered all the pieces for the box card here, and I'm making sure everything folds nicely. I cut the panels to size to fit the sides of the box, and I'm just cutting out the white section so that only the beach part is left. I'm going to add adhesive to the panels and then glue them onto the front flap and then the 2 side flaps of the box. Just like that. Okay, so then I had the idea of using my Versamark marker and the white puff embossing powder to create kind of that white water. And I absolutely loved it. It was a total what if, and it just happened to work, and I loved it. So now I'm taking the last panel left and I'm cutting it into 3 sections. So like a light color, a mid color, and then the dark color section. And these pieces are going to get glued into the box on each of the 3 sections within it. So I'm putting the light color in the front, then the mid-tone color in the second tab, and then the darker one on the last tab. And so it looks like that. Okay, so now I'm going to work on that back flap panel. So I'm inking in a little bit of Mermaid Lagoon Distress Oxide ink to create the water. I'll bring in that tea dye Distress Oxide for the sand part also. And again, this doesn't have to be super neat. I'm going to bring in ripe persimmon for the sunset background, and I'm also going to bring in a little wild honey to blend that all in. And I'm going to take the tea dye and just bring back a little bit more of that sand. Alright, so now I'm going to stamp the little birds flying in the sunset sky and a little Adirondack chair. This is all in a stamp set. So I'm stamping it in white pigment ink, and then I'm going to use the Hero Arts white embossing powder, and I'll die cut it with the coordinating die. I'm actually going to be doing 2 of these chairs. I'm stamping the sentiment also in black, and then I'm going to adhere both of those little Adirondack chairs that I die cut. Now this panel is ready, and I'm going to be adhering it to the back, just like so. Alright, so now I have stamped 3 little sea stars in the 2 different sizes. I die cut them out, and then I'm adding a little bit of dot detail with the E08 Copic marker. I'm going to adhere them, not with a whole lot of glue because I usually tend to move things around, but enough just to hold it onto it until I'm ready to adhere it fully. I stamped and die cut a few seashells, so I'm going to arrange them on the front panel and one on the side panel as well. And then I'm going to attach the little sea stars. Next, I'm going to stamp the rock in River Rock ink from Fawn, and then the little mermaid on top of the rock in jellyfish ink. And this is a no line coloring friendly ink. I'm going to take my Copic markers and kind of give a little tribute here to Ariel. And so I'm going to color her in, and using the jellyfish ink kind of gives me a place to know where to color. So it works beautifully with Copic markers. The markers kind of, you know, the ink will disappear underneath the markers, and so it'll be nice and seamless when all the coloring is done. So I'm using 3 colors of blue, transitioning to aqua, transitioning to green on that mermaid tail. And then of course can't forget her little top, because it's got to keep this rated G. Now I'm going to be cutting these out, so one thing I like to do is to take a marker and outline, because I don't want just a white outline, so I'm coloring it in with a BG 10, I think this is. And so I'm going to color in around the images. I did stamp some little dolphins as well. I'm going to take my detailed scissors and then just cut these out. Dies do come with, it did come with the kit, but since I did a mirror image of the dolphin and I stamped the little mermaid with the rock, I couldn't really use the dies. But it was okay to fussy cut just these little 3 images, and then I'm going to adhere them to where I want them along the waves. So that is it. This is done, and when it folds down, it fits in an A2 envelope. And here's the first card we made. So I'm going to leave you with final looks at the 2 finished cards. And as you can see on the Slimline card, I went ahead and added some of that white puff embossing powder to create that white water. I thought it just was such an awesome look, so I had to do it to this one too. And some final images of the pop-up box card. I think it came out really fun, with those dolphins jumping and leaping out of the water with little Ariel looking on. Enjoy the beach life, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting. I will be back with day 3 of Beach Week, and I'll be using another different stamp set to play with. If you'd like to watch day 1, I will list it here, and other videos if you're interested. Thanks so much. Until next time, bye.